Hey, everybody, and welcome to our podcast, The Assumption Effect Manifestation Podcast. We're your hosts, Flossie and Nikki. We're going to talk about some exciting things, all manifestation related.
So Flossie and I are both mindset manifestation coaches, and today we will be starting from the beginning. We're going to talk about what the law of assumption is, what manifestation is, and how to utilize it.
Exactly. I think, the whole entire topic of manifestation, law of assumption is confusing to a lot of people because many people, like ourselves, came from the law of attraction community, which is a different form of manifestation, one which I personally think has a lot of limitations. But I know myself kind of found law of attraction back in 2005, 2006 when the original Secret came out. I remember it originally when it actually had Abraham Hicks in it before it was replaced with Lisa Nichols.
Oh yeah, I don't think I ever saw the Abraham Hicks one, but I came across law of attraction. My mom was very woo-woo growing up, but then an ex-boyfriend of mine had me watch The Secret, and I got into it, and I focused more on business myself with it, and I utilize it in business coaching and things like that. But I think, what year did you find Law of Assumption? Was it about 2019?
Yeah, roughly like right around 2020, like maybe the very beginning of that.
Yeah, I think Flossie and
20,
I are on the same timeline pretty much with all of that.
yeah.
So, I mean, when I came about it, I read a lot of Neville, Joseph Murphy, things of that nature. But at the end of the day, I realized that, law of assumption, you're making your own rules, you're making your own reality. And that's really what the premise of everything is if you assume something to be true in your reality, that's exactly what it's going to be.
Well, I remember the law of attraction was pretty confusing. I mean, I remember I read so many books back then. And I manifested some really cool things. Like I manifested a house at the pool and moving to where I wanted to move. And I used a vision board and I did all these things. But back in the day, I don't really remember them talking much about like, your negative thinking and controlling your negative thoughts. It was all about vibrating to a certain frequency or whatever. And, I manifested some awesome things. And I also unintentionally manifested some things that weren't so awesome. And so when I found law of assumption, I was like, this is what makes sense to me. This whole vibrating what? Like, we're talking about a vibrating mattress, one of those hotel beds that vibrate. Like, what's supposed to be vibrating? Can't say the other type of vibrating, but I was like, this got to go.
Right. No, same way. Like I always felt like I needed to produce some kind of feeling, so I could like feel like I was this high vibration being. And for me, I couldn't do that all the time. There was just days where I was just too tired, or I was overworked, or it was just too much effort. So when I found law of assumption, it was just so much easier. It's just so much easier to think than it is to try to produce some kind of energy that I'm pulling from nothing.
And unfortunately, I think we both would agree that a lot of the clients that come to us, many have often come from the law of attraction community, and they are very confused about law of assumption, and they're trying to talk about them both and they are hung up on, well, I've got to feel it real as though, as if I have it, and I've got to do all these things to act as if I have it. And my vibration isn't high enough. And it's like, just put the vibration straight in the trash where it belongs.
Right. We don't need any of that here. So law
Yeah.
of assumption is literally what you assume to happen, what you assume to have, what you assume to be in your reality is what you're going to get. And
And
really, oh, go
well,
ahead.
assumption is nothing more than basically like uh, the belief that something is true without proof. Now, we will get into that, you don't have to fully believe it in order for it to come forth into your 3D reality, and we'll talk about all of those differences. It essentially is, your dominant thought on a topic or concept is what you are going to ultimately experience.
Exactly. So for me, making the switch from attraction to assumption was a little difficult at first. I felt like I had been brainwashed a little bit by law of attraction. So coming over to law of assumption, it's like, is it really this easy? And I felt like I overthought it a lot. Like there's a lot of things going through, like, am I doing this right? Like I don't feel anything. What's going on? Like, because I always wanted to produce this feeling. So really, I mean, the whole premise of law of assumption, you assume it, it comes true. You just get into that state of assuming. You just decide to assume something. But not everybody can do that so easily. especially coming out of law of attraction. I feel like that's where affirming and everything else comes in.
Well, law of attraction for me, after I started like having a bunch of experiences that were unpleasant, undesirable, I just kind of like set it aside, to be honest. I mean, there were a handful of things that I would still do, just go through some of the motions, like writing out a list, like getting very clear on what I wanted. Um, but other than that, I mean, I wasn't practicing it a whole lot. Like when I actually started getting into the law of assumption, the law of attraction, I just felt like, some of this just doesn't make any sense to me. And so I just got irritated with it and kind of put it up on the shelf.
Right. Well, I mean, I let it fall to the wayside at some point, but I think just muscle memory made me feel like I needed to produce this feeling that I really didn't need to produce. And that's what I experienced personally with some of the clients that come my way that come from attraction. They feel like they need to feel it real, like that's a literal statement, and it's not. You know,
No.
feeling it real is just, believing or assuming that you have what is already yours. So I think what we should really talk about is how does law of assumption work? I mean, for you, how do you perceive how the law of assumption works?
So a law of assumption to me is just bringing something tangible into your 3D reality. You have a desire and there's something that you want to experience, do, whether it's a relationship you want to have, an amount of money, going on a trip, an event, it doesn't really matter, but you have this desire. And essentially, to me, law of assumption manifestation is that desire goes from like you thinking it in your head to it being in your 3D reality. It becomes this tangible, experienceable event, thing, etc. Something that you can see, hear, touch, feel, whatever it is that you want to look at. Um, but essentially, at the end of the day, I just go by the mindset of if I have a desire, that creation is already finished. The creation's already finished because you can't desire anything that you can't have. So if you have it, if you can have it, that means it would already be created, it would already be finished. You just have to become the version of you that is going to have it by changing your dominant thoughts and assumptions around that topic. You change your mindset about it so that the 3D reality can conform.
Exactly. I mean, if you can dream it, you can have it, basically is all it is. And that's how I see it as well. I mean, that is what it is, pen and paper. That's what the law of assumption is. So there are several different ways to achieve your desire. Of course, you can just shift to that state of just assuming that it's already yours. I think if you already have beliefs or assumptions in your favor already, it's actually pretty easy just to shift into that knowing that that desire is done. So if you've always had like wonderful relationships, always been really good with money, you already have that inner knowledge, that inner knowing that it's easy for you to have those things. So for you to assume it real would be stupid easy. Like next day, same day, overnight shipping, whatever you want to look at it as. So for me, like I've always been an entrepreneur, so starting a business, super simple. I always profit from businesses. That's just something I know. So when I have that desire to start a new business or do something new, for me, it's simple because I already have that assumption about that. But when it comes to something I've never had before, something new to me, something I've been limited on, that's when those techniques come into play sometimes to help you align or have your thoughts produce the new assumption.
Exactly. I mean, we form assumptions different ways. I do agree that if someone already has some life experiences that they can draw off of, if they have assumptions already or some dominant thoughts about a topic, that's when people are really stepping into their power and they think of a preference and it shows up because there's no such thing as coincidences, right? Coincidence is just a word that we came up with in order to explain the anomaly of like we think of someone and they're calling us, or we think of wanting to do something and it just literally shows up or the opportunity presents itself. But there's no actual real coincidences. That's all manifestation. Aside from that, when someone reaches that part in their journey where they can be like, this is what I want, this is how it is, period. In my life, I have XYZ, or this is what's happening. They're not maybe doing the repetition of thought over and over as far as affirming, but they are having some repetition of thought as far as they're keeping a clean mental diet on it. Because as far as they're concerned, it's theirs, it belongs to them, and they're going to have that experience.
Right. And that's how people manifest without knowing or being awake to manifestation. We're constantly manifesting whether we know about it or not.
Yeah, you cannot not manifest.
Right. It's all part of how we operate. So I think the biggest thing with manifestation, especially when it comes to law of attraction, if we're looking at law of attraction manifestation, law of attraction would tell you it's coming from the universe. But I think law of assumption, well, I know law of assumption, it's all coming from us. And if you want to manifest anything, it's going to be coming from yourself. That's where it's coming from.
Yes. It's coming from the subconscious part of your mind as how the theory goes, but your subconscious mind within you, you have either whether you want to look at it as God essence that's connected to the God, all, that's all the essence, or whether you want to look at it as it's your higher self within your subconscious that is connected to all the consciousness that exists. There is still part of you that is connected. And it is through that you manifest, then where your
Right.
3D realities will conform.
So whether you believe in God or the universe or you don't believe in anything, you're still going to manifest through your subconscious and whatever that belief system is that you hold. But
And
that's
I
where your
think
number's coming from.
And that's where everybody gets confused the most. Everyone is you pushed out is what literally confuses everyone the most. And it is so confusing because, everyone is you pushed out is a term that's often used in the manifestation community. EIYPO is sometimes its abbreviation, but everyone is you pushed out essentially means that your thoughts are pushed out from you and they're reflected back to you, mirrored back to you in your experiences. But people think, well, everyone as you pushed out is, that person's reflecting my emotion, that person's reflecting my thoughts on a topic, that person is um literally, being the devil's advocate for me as far as like that's what everyone as you pushed out is like someone being the devil's advocate or, you know, I hear so many different crazy things that everyone as you pushed out is described as. And at the end of the day, to a certain extent, they're all true because it's based on that person's assumption. Your assumption on that any person, topic, theory, etc., is what you're going to experience. And so if your assumption is everyone is here teaching me a life lesson, it'll appear as though everyone's teaching you a life lesson. Or if I'm upset about something and so this person's being angry at me about the same topic, so they're reflecting back my emotion that I'm trying to figure out about it, that's your assumption.
Mhm.
So different things happen in different people's realities because it's all based on their assumptions. But at the end of the day, everyone as you pushed out means people and things and concepts are behaving in your 3D reality as you assume, including how you manifest.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to change the assumptions you have. And there's so many different techniques you can use. The rule of thumb or the fallback technique is always affirming inner conversations, inner dialogue, something of that nature, so that you are constantly changing those inner thoughts so that you can change the assumption. Of course, you can visualize, you can do music manifesting, you can do EFT tapping, you can do scripting, telephone technique. There's so many different ones you can do. We'll get to it in a different episode. But I feel like, they all work. If you believe it works for you, if it feels right to you, if it feels like something you can, get down with, then that is what's right for you. You can literally use whatever technique you wish to help you change that assumption so things reflect back exactly how you want them to.
Well, that just, it's part of like one of the ways, it's one of the many ways that we form assumptions in the first place is having a repetitive thought, thinking something over and over again to the point that your mind has a certain level of a buy-in that what you're thinking could possibly be true, that in the most simplest terms. And so it doesn't matter how you have the repetition of thought. We use the term affirming because that can, too broadly kind of encompass all different types of repetition of thought because we don't necessarily always, when we're talking to people, refer to scripting, visualizing, and all the different methods. We're just like affirming or having repetition of thought. But
Right.
that is one of the ways to change your dominant thought on the topic the fastest is by saturating your mind with your desire, the new thought of what the 3D reality is, and so that it can have go to your subconscious in order to manifest.
Right. And the biggest thing is you don't have to feel it. I think that's a common misconception with a lot of people when they come into this. They hear the phrase "feel it real," "live in the in," those kind of things, and they assume that they have to actually produce a feeling. And that's the biggest thing that I hear that I try to get, clients or other manifestors away from is like you literally don't have to feel anything. You're just trying to convince yourself of a new assumption so that your reality aligns with that. So your reality produces those results for you.
I would 110% agree. You just want to, keep pushing forward until it is reflected back to you. But at the same time, there's so many different phrases that are confusing, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to do the podcast the first place is because we see a lot of confusion just in the manifestation community in general, where I don't think that some topics are either fully being discussed or maybe they're not being discussed in depth and they're not fully explaining like why the confusion lies, like where the confusions come from. And so we just want everybody to be able to like manifest literally the lives that they want and deserve. And by getting rid of some of the confusion and having it be more understandable, I think it'll be, and my assumption is it makes it easier for people to manifest when they under kind of have some understanding of what you need to do, repetition, thought, and versus like what's not necessary. You don't have to feel real, you don't have to be vibrating at any particular state.
Right.
You can literally be sitting in a sea of anxiety and feeling desperate as fuck and still manifest what you want.
Exactly. I mean, I have a lot of people that come to me, they're anxious, depressed, they're just really not in a good mental state, but that has no effect on your assumption
Mm-mm.
whatsoever.
Because it's
I,
all up here. It's all up in your head. It's what's in
right.
your head.
And guess what? You can manifest those things away too. You can manifest your mental health. You can manifest your health. You can manifest anything you can possibly think of. I know that I've manifested plenty of things being anxious.
Oh, me too. I mean, but as far as like starting from the beginning, basically manifestation is you have a desire and it's bringing that desire from being something that you want to experience, something that's a thought into your 3D reality, which the 3D reality is basically another way to put the world you live in. So, we live in the 3D, we live in this world, and it's bringing that experience to where you can actually taste, feel, touch it, etc. Uh, Going from a thought, a desire in your head into actually into quote unquote the real world.
Right. So whatever you can desire, whatever you can, or whatever you desire, whatever you dream up, whatever burning thing is in your soul that you want, you can have it. It
You
just
just
takes
have to be
repetition.
You just have to become the version of you that has it. And you become the version of you that has it by changing your dominant thought on that topic and allowing the 3D reality to conform. And I don't mean like, sometimes we try to use words to explain things and just cringe because I'm thinking of the way that the law of attraction community or other communities use it and like, you have to allow it or let it go. And it's like, no, I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just saying, give a moment for your 3D reality to conform without trying to micromanage every second. How about that?
Right. Don't strangle it to death. Allow
Right.
it to happen, but don't squeeze the life out of it. So, and really, I think one of the last things I really want to say, of course, we're going to have more episodes where we really get detailed on this, but as far as allowing it and as far as, having this desire, persisting in it so that you can change that assumption so it shows up in your 3D reality, please remember to keep living your life. Do not strangle it so much that you forget to go to work or you isolate yourself from the world because manifestation should be fun. It shouldn't be like a life or death scenario. So
Yeah.
just make sure that that's how you
Don't
do it.
don't cling to your manifestation like grandma clings to her sweater.
Right.
Have some fun with life um and what we mean by strangling the life out of your manifestation, just, because we try to be the least limiting as possible, is we're saying being so desperate for your manifestation that you're looking under every rock for it, that you're trying to manipulate the 3D and that you're, constantly reaffirming to yourself that you don't have it, which is a completely different topic that we'll get into at another time because, you can feel needy and desperate, still your manifestation. But if you're giving into a bunch of desperate, needy, anxious driven behaviors, a lot of times you unintentionally cause your own delay.
Exactly. So desire it, assume it, persist in that. It shows up. It's that simple. But we'll get into all the fine details in the next episodes.
So until then, I guess keep your eye out for your notifications. Make sure to hit like, share, subscribe to help us grow our podcast. And so we can talk to you guys all about things manifestation, law of assumption related.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.